Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Today we got a special project for you. We got a new rifle here. We're getting ready to mount the bases, rings, and a new scope on it. You're going to be seeing a lot of this rifle in future videos. It's my first custom. We're going to do a review of the rifle, review of the optic. We're going to go after some factory loads and then chase some hand loads with it. Let you know how it performs, and then we're trying to line up a podcast with the gunsmith I worked with, so he can give you some of his views on custom rifles, his secrets, and what he does. Today, we're going to work on the base, the rings, and the scope. I've got a little setup for you here. I've removed the bolts. I've put something in the action here. Basically, it's just a napkin because we're going to be using Loctite and some alcohol to clean everything. And I really don't want all that stuff leaking into my action and gumming things up. Currently, I got my base screws soaking in some alcohol, so we can get those machine oils off of them. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to clean the top of this receiver and the bottom of the base. Just wipe it down with a little alcohol. Our base is a NightForce Extreme Duty. It's a 20 MOA base. And our rings over here to the side are the NightForce rings. And then we've got our ATACR scope that we're going to be mounting on this rifle. So I've got those two items wiped down. What I'm going to do now is grab a screw, and we're going to run one of these base screws in and out of these holes. Make sure we don't have any problems, and that'll actually clean them a little bit with that alcohol, because we don't want the machine oils and the alcohol mixing with the Loctite we're getting ready to use. These are standard base screws. I know a lot of guys on a rifle like this will go 840 with the base screws. A lot of that is because of misalignment with the factory drill holes. We didn't really see any on this rifle, so we're going to run with it as it is. I'm going to grab another screw here. It's probably got a little more alcohol on it. We'll finish running those down. Had some questions already about caliber for this rifle. Everybody wants to know if it's a 6.5 Creed. It seems to be one of the most popular calibers right now and one of the hardest ammunitions to find. Based on what I already have on ammunition, this is just a boring 308. Get that last screw run in and out. So this last hole down here on the end, instead of actually going into the action, you can see the barrel threads underneath it. I'm going to pull the rest of these screws out here so we have them ready. What I like to do is I usually take the cardboard inserts that came with the scope base. I'll lay my screws out on that, let them dry a little bit. More white down here. Go ahead and sit that base up there. And we use the blue Loctite. I've had pretty good luck with it. I know there's, when you buy Tally tactical rings and bases, they come with a little bit of super glue to put on the threads. I've heard of people using red Loctite, JB Weld, and nothing. I've always had luck with the blue Loctite. I think you should Loctite everything. You should torque it down, make sure it's right. Any shooting trouble that I've had in the past has pretty much been tracked down to either a faulty scope or faulty scope mounting. So that's why I like to take my time with this stuff. Alright, so we're going to get this Loctite out. Going to arrange our screws in the order we want. We're going to dab each of them with a little Loctite. Kind of let that soak in, move around the threads. We're going to get our torque wrench out and set it up. It's recommended for 25 inch-pounds. That's what NightForce recommends. We're going to start at 10. Go up from there. Alright, so let's see if we can get these guys in here. Fill in there and see if that went all the way through, and I don't feel anything on the bottom side. And give ourselves a little more Loctite. Get these down snug with the wrench. There we go. Alright, so we're at 10 pounds. I'm going to work front. Back. We're going to go ahead and take that to our final setting, which will be 25. One more time through this. The Wheeler torque wrench recommends 3 clicks. So there you go. We got our base mounted. Loctite it down with the screws. Go ahead and make sure we don't got any extra Loctite floating around there. The recommended cure time, I think set time is 20 minutes. cure time is 24 hours. So we're gonna wait that 24 hours, make sure everything's set up good before we start torquing our rings on there and messing around with the base. That'll help us avoid any problems we might have. So through the magic of video editing, I'll see you in 24 hours. All right, welcome back. It's been 24 hours thanks to the magic of video and a broken clock. It looks to be the exact same time that we finished yesterday. So today the goal is to finish the scope mounting, get the rings match marked, get everything cleaned up. Then I'm going to set my eye relief, and then we're going to level the scope to the gun, get everything Loctited and torqued down. So I've removed the rings from the packaging. These are a set of NightForce Extreme Duty Ultralight rings. Something I like to do is I like to imagine that these rings have been together their whole life, the top and bottom. So when I pull them off, I match mark them so that I can get the same tops and bottoms back together in the same orientation. So once those are match marked, we're going to go ahead and remove our screws. We're going to go through the same cleaning procedure that we did yesterday, which is we're going to soak our screws in alcohol, we're going to wipe down the inside of the rings and the scopes, and we're going to run a few screws in and out to make sure all our machine oils and everything is cleaned off and properly ready to accept our Loctites. So bear with me while I get these screws off. Screws off, I like to put them in the cap, pour the alcohol on them. We'll let them sit a minute. We'll go ahead and get some alcohol on our rag, and we're going to clean off the inside of these scope rings. We want to be careful not to remove any match marks that we put on everything. Once we get our scope, I've got to take off my leveling device. I'll show you how we install that here in a little bit. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the best shot of where we think our rings are going to want to be, and we're just going to snug those down. We're going to use our same rag here. We're going to make sure the body of our scope is clean. Don't want anything in there that might damage the tube or not get us a good mount. We're going to set that in there. Try to be somewhat equal on our distance. I think I'm going to move this ring back a notch if I have the room. Looks like about right there is where it's going to want to be. So the one thing you may notice that's additional is we got an SME level that fits right on this scope rail right across the top, and that's going to help us level the gun when we shoot, and it's also going to help us level this scope. So for the time being, we're going to go ahead and set our caps up here. we're going to take a few screws out, 4 to be exact. We're going to temporarily bolt down this scope. Let me get these in here and then we'll talk about how we're going to set our eye relief. These are 6 screw rings. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that middle slot. Just want it tight enough that we don't move a whole lot. Good. I'm going to go ahead and reapply my match marks. I lost them a little bit there. I'm using a colored pencil. In the past I've used Sharpie and I've used paint pen. Alright, so now we need to worry about setting our eye relief. When it comes to eye relief, the worst possible situation is shooting prone on the highest power. So that's how we're going to set this up. I'm going to do that off camera and then I'm going to come back and we'll finish mounting. So I'm going to set this for this scope on 20 power. I'm going to get down prone. I'm going to get comfortable on the stock, look through it, make sure I don't see any of that tunneling effect, and I'm going to move this scope forward and back until there's no tunneling. I get a few full view through it, and then what we'll do a couple times is we'll lay down, close our eyes, open our eyes on the stock, make sure it all looks like it should. So right now I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to set that up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my colored pencil and I'm going to mark the tube on my scope, and then we're going to come back and we're going to level the scope. We're going to make sure that marks where it should be for eye relief, and then we're going to torque everything down. So stand by and I'll be right back. Alright, we've got our eye relief set. We've marked the scope tube with where we're going to put it in relation to the rings when we do our final mounting. We've got our screws pulled. I'm going to be putting the Loctite on them in a second, but right now we're going to go ahead and torque our bases down to our rail. Now at 100 inch-pounds for the cross bolt, do not exceed 100 inch-pounds. So I think our wrench only goes to 65. I don't really want to run it in that top end, so I'm going to torque these down to about 60 inch-pounds, which should be more than enough. Nice thing about this Wheeler kit is it comes with a 1/4 inch drive adapter, and that is going to allow us to put our 1/2 inch socket on it. So let me get this torque wrench set, and then we'll get these rings torqued to the bases. We're going to start at 30. Kind of ease our way into it here. So we're going to loosen those. Now the thing about these bases is when you torque them down, we'll see if we can see it here, just sitting there, they've got a lot of play forward and back as they're sitting between those rails. You want the bases pushed all the way to the front, because that's where they're going to want to go under recoil. So up here, there's one. We're going to loosen that second base. We're going to pull it all the way forward. And we're going to torque that down. Now we're going to go ahead and work up to our 60 pounds here. It's really, you can really feel it on the spring on this torque wrench. Make sure we pull forward. There's our one click. Hit it again. And then the wheeler recommends the 3 turns. Alright, we'll go ahead and back that off to our minimum setting. Go ahead and get our Torx bit out for the rings. Set it aside. Okay, now we're going to mount this scope, and our goal is to get this as level as possible. So on the bottom of this scope, it's flat as could be. The erector system and the reticle are tied in to the base of this scope. So what I like to do is get me something flat like a ruler. I'd normally use rubber bands, but in our household, hair ties are a lot easier to come by. So we're going to put this ruler right along the bottom of that with a set of hair ties so that it's snug on the bottom, and it's going to help us level these two together. So I line up my lines. We're going to go ahead and pop these back on. Now if you remember from the previous videos, I got about 20 minutes working time with my Loctite before anything sets up. So we're going to go ahead and dab everything with Loctite. Let it get going on all these screws. We're going to take 2 of these screws and put in each ring. Now once again, I paid attention to my match marking so my rings can stay mated for life. I like to imagine that's how they are. And I want to get these snug enough where I can just rotate that scope in there. Once we achieve level, we'll come back, put the other screws in, and then we'll start our sequence of torquing in an X pattern. All the way across. So just a quick double check. We're going to go a little bit tighter here. That's about what we want. My eye relief marks look good. So I've got the level on the gun, and then I've got another level here that we're going to sit on this ruler. So the first thing I want to do is make sure my gun is level. I want to float that bubble right in the middle, which is right there. Now, I'll take a look at this level on the scope. rotate that until I float that bubble in the middle. I'm going to double check them both. So we're floated in the middle there. And we're floated in the middle there. So we're going to go ahead and give them a little more torque so that don't move. Looks like we bumped it a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and loosen it up and move it a little. Just to make me feel a little better about it. So the importance of this is this can equate to tracking errors at long distance. As you can hear, that makes the dogs unhappy. So with our rifle level and our scope level, when we go to track that elevation, it's going to track straight up and down. Whereas if we were off, if that erector was tilted a little bit, it's going to have a little bit of cant in it one way or the other. You won't notice that at your closer distances, but the further you get out, you're going to think you're making bad wind calls or something's wrong with your rifle. So if we keep everything up and down, and there's more than one way to skin a cat. I've seen people that'll use a plumb bob. They'll hang a plumb bob, they'll get back on their scope and make sure everything's even that way. You know, you could set your, instead of using this ruler method, you could set your level on top of your cap. But I think you need to be careful. It depends on what kind of cap you have. You can see some caps won't be flat on top, so that may not be an option. The caps that are held in by the side set screws like this, it's possible they could be off a little bit and that cap could be tilted. I mean, there's several things. This NightForce scope gave me a nice flat bottom. I know the erector's permanently in that area, so I'll just put this flat ruler and level on it. So bear with me here while I get these screws in. We'll remove this ruler and level, and then we'll do some torque. 25 inch-pounds, so we're going to start at about 15. We're going to work straight across, and then we're going to go X pattern. Now we're going to work up to 25, which is our recommended torque. This is right about there. And we're going to follow the same pattern. And hard to see them back sides when I'm sitting down. All right. one more time, we'll do the 3 on each screw. And we're going to wipe everything down. Make sure we don't get any of that Loctite or anything where we don't want it to be. Those marks I put on there are colored pencil. They'll just wear off over time. At this point, that really concludes our scope mounting. It may seem like a lot of trouble, but again, I'll tell you that usually any shooting problems I find can be traced back to either a faulty scope, one that doesn't track properly or has some problems, or some of these mounting screws have come loose. We've used Loctite on everything. We're going to let these rings cure 24 hours just like we did the base. We moved our bases forward because that's where they're going to want to go under recoil, so we shouldn't have any slippage there. And then we tightened everything down to the appropriate specs. And of course after that, we leveled everything before we did all that, which is very important if you're going to be doing any type of long range shooting. So I have confidence that this scope is mounted properly, that it's going to stay where it's supposed to stay. NightForce is renowned for its tracking. We're going to test that out along with everything else on the scope. If you go to our website, bigwyomingadventures.com, you're going to see a write-up. That's where all the specs are going to be listed, maybe some more information about how I did the eye relief. That's going to be some exclusive content that you won't get by just watching this video. I hope you enjoy the video. I look forward to sharing a review of the scope, the rifle, what factory ammunition we use, what hand loads we're going to use, and then maybe later in the fall we'll get to take a deer with this rifle. Thanks again for your time. I hope you got something out of this. Ask any questions. If you got any questions, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Like, subscribe, share this video with your friends.